Welcome to episode 3 of the Fast and Goal podcast. My name is Gavin Fast, and above me is my cousin Clayton Fast.
Hello, guys.
And today is Sunday the 31st, and we are at halftime of the South Carolina and Virginia Tech game. Close game, 10 to 8. Clayton's been watching most of the first half. I kind of just tuned in a little bit late. We'll be talking about that, but before that, we are going to talk about yesterday's games. Saturday the 30th. Clayton, are you ready to get into these games?
Yes, I am ready to get right into these games.
So let me go ahead and share my screen. And the first game that we'll be talking about is going to be the game that Clayton attended, which is Ohio State and Texas. So, Clayton, you were there in the student section. Tell us what you saw in this game. Here's
All
the
right.
floor.
So, first of all, I would like to say Julian saying he didn't overperform, but for a Buckeye fan, I would say we are looking for a bit more out of a quarterback, but I would say he did do decently in his first start. I think what is it true freshman? They're 1-16 now and start as first starts against a ranked team. But yes, I would say that he did do decent. Um, I would say most of the errors would be on our wide receivers catching Jeremiah Smith, the tight end. They both had some bad drops, but I would say that he does need to get the ball a little bit more to Jeremiah Smith and just let Jeremiah Smith do the work. And then Arch Manning. Arch Manning, first half looked completely trash. I think he had 38 yards passing on the first half. And then um the second half of the fourth quarter is where he started to actually do something and be able to get yards. But um he might be getting his footing now and be able to be good as a quarterback, but we'll see. In a couple weeks, his next challenge will be the Gators, but for like the next 3 weeks they play like nobody.
Right. So, I really only watched the first half in detail, and then I kind of was popping my head in and out at work of the second half. So I think Julian Sand played pretty well for what they expected. You can't really expect too much for these young guys in their first starts. He was 13 for 20, but we saw Jeremiah Smith drop a couple balls. I think it was Bennett Christian, is that Purdue transfer that dropped the one on fourth down. But he looked pretty composed. He definitely looked a lot. He looked like he was under less pressure than Arch. He looked like he would. Sayin looked more like a veteran. Arch looked more like a true freshman. And then I like Wisner. I think Wisner ran the ball pretty good for Texas. I don't think they'll have any problem running the ball. But yeah, Arch missed a lot of throws. I mean, yeah, both of these, I still think Texas is a playoff team. I think Ohio State's obviously kind of solidified as a playoff team after this win. Sayin looked decent, so I think they can just kind of breeze through the rest of their schedule. And yeah, do you have anything else to add?
I would like to add that I do not like the lines for Ohio State offensively and defensively. Defensively, they need to be able to stop the run better. I feel like they were able to get pressure on Arch, but it is going to be an issue stopping the run all year, especially like when we see Penn State at home. And then the offensive line needs to give Sands some more time because Ohio State's just going to have to work with the mid passes this year if the offensive line is going to underperform that much.
Yeah. I think I think the Texas O line and the Texas D line are probably the toughest Ohio State will face all year. Um, Maybe Penn State might is up there with the O line. But I think Texas is definitely one of the best teams at the line of scrimmage. So I think Ohio State should be able to improve at the line of scrimmage. You also have a lot of turnover there at the on the defensive line, as their whole defensive line basically is off to the NFL from last season's team. So I think it's just week one. Like they might need some time to piece it together, but holding Texas to only 7 points, I'd say is quite good for that D line, but yeah, the O line can improve, but at the same time, it's also Texas, so against some of the lower teams in the Big Ten, you shouldn't have as much of a struggle. Okay, and then let's move on to the mid-game slate, the 3:30 slate of
I called it.
Alabama and Florida State. Did you watch this game, or were you in the car? Were you
I
walking
was
to the car?
I was not watching this game. I was in the car for most of the game. I would like caught the tail end of it on my phone, but other than that, no. But I did call this game.
You what? You
I
what?
called the game. I told you. I said Florida State will
Oh, Florida
cover. I
State
said
money
they
line.
might win.
Right, right. So here we have Florida State just completely upsetting Alabama. Alabama scored on their first drive. I honestly thought it was going to be over after that first drive. Or was it the first drive or no? Might have been a couple drives in now that I think about it. Or no, yeah, it was that first drive. Look, 75 yards, 8 minutes, 50 seconds. I thought that the game was over right after that first touchdown, but then Florida State, they kind of believed in themselves this whole game. Like they respond right back with the touchdown, and then from there on, Florida State just takes over, kind of forces Alabama to throw the ball in the second half, but Ty Simpson, he's still inexperienced. He didn't look great. Same with Ryan Williams. I mean, we definitely want to see more out of him. And then for Castellanos, the good thing for Florida State is that he didn't have to throw a lot. So since Florida State got out to that lead early, they're definitely going to want to get out to these leads early for most of the season because Castellanos is a better running threat quarterback than he is in the air. But Castellanos was efficient, only had to take 14 attempts, but he didn't throw any picks and he was great on the ground. And yeah, this running back room has a lot of depth. I'm surprised that we didn't see Sawchuck from Oklahoma. I'm surprised we didn't see him get some more touches. But we have Danzy right here, only 3 carries, 56 yards and a touchdown. So yeah, I think this Florida State team looks good. They could potentially sneak in to the playoffs as like a 12 seed or an 11 seed, especially with Clemson not looking great. Um, but yeah, do you think Alabama can still make the playoffs, Clayton, or do you think this team has no shot?
Um, yes, I do think Alabama can make the playoffs. I They are gonna have to win out after here, but I feel like if they're able to regroup and because what did Ryan Williams only have like 30 passing or reception
Yeah.
yards?
Yeah, he only had 30 receiving yards, I think. Like, he's still young. He's a true sophomore. I think he can definitely pick up on that in the future, but
Yeah.
him and a new quarterback, it might
Yeah.
just take a little while to gel together.
I feel like yeah, once their new quarterback um and him get going, they'll be a powerhouse and I see them getting in the playoffs as an 11 or 12 seed.
Okay. And then let's move on. After that big upset, we had the night game, LSU and Clemson. Another upset, not quite as big of an underdog, but LSU did get the win on the road, only 17 to 10, which is kind of low scoring considering the two great quarterbacks that were in this game. Um, Cade Klubnik just looked horrible. Everybody was bashing him on Twitter, bashing him on Instagram. He was kind of up there in the Heisman conversation, which we'll talk about in a little bit. Now he seems to be, I wouldn't say completely out of it because it's just week one, but at the same time, this LSU defense isn't necessarily elite. They're definitely improved from what they were a few years ago, but at the same time, only completing 50% of your passes, no touchdowns, one interception. We can kind of write off Cade Klubnik out of that top five, top 10 discussion for these first few weeks, I'm gonna say. Um, and yeah, everybody was hyping up the receiving core. And I mean, they didn't play horrible, but they didn't play great. And then they struggled to just run the ball. I mean, they didn't even really attempt to run the ball a lot, which was a little shocking to me, considering Klubnik wasn't looking good really at all for the entire game. Um, Nussmeier looked really solid. He made some really impressive throws. they called a touchdown back that should have been called a touchdown, so this game could have been 24 to 10 really. The announcers didn't seem too happy about that. Um, he has some really big targets in this receiving room. Durham, number 29, looks like LSU finally found their running back, which they haven't really had a real good running back one the last couple of years. So yeah, do you think LSU can win the championship, Clayton? Do you think they have a possibility, or is Brian Kelly just going to choke once again?
Um, I feel like they will make the playoffs and they will go to the semifinals, but in the semifinals, he's gonna choke. Kelly will choke the semifinals,
Uh,
and Clemson is out of the playoffs.
you
They've
don't
been
think that they
over.
can make it? You don't think they
No,
can bounce back?
they won't bounce back. They've been overrated. I just think that Clemson has been done for a couple years, and they won't be back for a couple more years.
Yeah, I think both of these teams will make the playoffs. I mean, Clemson's schedule just gets insanely easier throughout the rest of the year. We've seen Klubnik bounce back from bad games before. He kind of started his season, or he started his career off as a pretty poor quarterback. A lot of people were hating on him, then had a bounce back season last year. So this is kind of the same story. He's starting off this season with a poor game. I think he could definitely bounce back. Um, this receiving core is one of the best receiving cores that Clemson's had in a while. This has been hyped up all off season. I mean, they kind of just ran into like what's the word? Kind of a furious LSU team that really needs a week one win. This was their first week one win since 2020 when they won the championship. So this LSU team just kind of had a chip on their shoulder. You could tell that they really needed this win, and they got the win. But I think Clemson can still make the playoffs for sure. They have a great defense. They don't really rely on the transfer portal. They kind of build within their program, which I like a lot. Um, but yeah, it hasn't been working kind of the last few years in the early transfer portal ages, but Dabo seems pretty confident in his team this year. And I mean, they got outgained by quite a bit. And like I mentioned, that one touchdown that got called back, yeah, outgained by almost 100 yards. Clemson even won the turnover battle and still lost. But yeah, I think that they could definitely bounce back, sneak in as a 12 to 10 seed, and you never know. We could see Klubnik get hot again, maybe make a run in the playoffs. Because we see a lot of teams this year that are normally in the playoffs with poor quarterback play. I wouldn't say Ohio State is poor, but it's definitely not as good as it has been in years past. Same with Texas. Same with Who did we just talk about? Alabama. So a lot of these top tier teams with mediocre quarterbacks. And Klubnik definitely has the potential to be a top quarterback. It's just he's just so on again, off again that you'd never really know with them. Anything else on this game?
No, but I definitely do see Clemson could sneak in the playoffs. But I don't see them going far in the playoffs.
Okay.
Um, I don't think I think Klubnik will choke in the playoffs.
Okay. So we're just gonna go through these next two games really, really quickly. Nothing too notable here, but we see Tennessee blow out Syracuse. Um, and Jelly looked pretty horrible. Where was he the transfer from? Right, he's the Notre Dame transfer, so he didn't look great. Um, and Tennessee kind of showed that they don't really need Nico to be successful. Like, they dropped in the polls all the way down to 24, which seems really low for Tennessee. They've had pretty successful seasons the last few years. I think Nico's just super overrated. We saw he didn't play great in that Utah game yesterday, and Joey Aguilar might even be an upgrade from Nico. Not super efficient, but he did throw for nearly 250 yards, three touchdowns, no picks, put some yards on the ground as well. And yeah, it's just this Tennessee team just dominated at the line of scrimmage. SEC over ACC, which is a big win for the SEC considering they lost this Alabama Florida State game, the Texas Ohio State game. So LSU and Tennessee are kind of carrying, and we're seeing South Carolina struggle too. So it's kind of on again, off again for these SEC teams here in week one. And then the last one I wanted to talk about was Kansas State and North Dakota. Um, Kansas State had a game-winning touchdown with about, well, it was like 40 seconds left or something.
Yeah, 37 seconds left.
Avery Johnson is a great quarterback, but he just has no help. We saw Dylan Edwards get injured last week, their star running back, and he just doesn't really have any other good running backs to help him, any good receivers to help him. I thought that their defense was good. Chris Kleiman is a great coach. He's been getting some decent transfers, decent recruits over the last few years. But yeah, this game was definitely way too close for comfort. Somehow Kansas State squeaked it out. Um, but what I wanted to talk about here is, as we all know, Kansas State played in Dublin, Ireland last week against Iowa State, and it's seeming to be a continuing trend that these week zero teams that play in Ireland seem to come back the next week and then just be super, super sloppy. We didn't see that for Iowa State, but I know last year we saw it for Florida State as they lost their week one game. And I'm not sure how Georgia Tech did last year after that game, but it's just something that's continuing or that's continuously being talked about on social media and in the sports world. So, do you think that we should continue to see these games in Dublin in week zero if the teams are just going to continue to look sloppy in here in week one?
No, I feel like they need to stop this Dublin thing. I don't think that the NCAA will, but enough teams will say, no, we're not going to go to Dublin, Ireland and play because we don't want to come back and then play 2 to 3 weeks crappy because they're not used to it, like the time change and just everything throws the
Right.
players off and play sloppy. I feel like it will come to an end at some point. I'm not for sure about, I'm sure next year they've already got the two teams figured
Yeah, they're
out.
locked in with, I think UNC, isn't it, next year?
Yeah, so I think it'll take a couple years to end, but yeah, I definitely see it coming to an end like the overseas games.
Yeah. So here's a stat. With not just Dublin, Ireland, but with week zero in general, week zero teams since 2005 are 34 and 60 in week one against the spread when they're facing an opponent that didn't play in week zero. So a 0-0 opponent is 60 and 34 against teams who played in week zero. What do you think about that? How do you feel if Ohio State is scheduled for a week zero game? Would you be nervous going into week one? Or do you think
Yeah.
that this is kind of just a fluky stat?
Um, I feel like it is a little bit of a fluky stat, but then again, I feel like it is also a real stat. I would be nervous if Ohio State did play week zero and then came for week one and played Texas. I definitely feel like Ohio State would have lost if they did that.
Yeah, I don't think that the schedule would ever line that up. I just think that, like, after seeing this Kansas State game, it looks like maybe after having film out there in week zero, the teams who don't have any film out there, it's kind of just a big advantage for that team who is going into their first game compared to another team who's going into their second game.
Yeah.
Okay, so. That is, oh, before we finish week one, we're going to look at the Heisman race. And we see Cade Klubnik fall to plus 1600, Arch Manning fall to plus 1800. Do you think either of these guys have a chance to bounce back, or do you think that both of them are out of the picture?
I think that both of them are out of the picture. Arch Manning for sure is out of the picture. Um, but yeah, Club Net Brick could potentially come back, but Arch is for sure out of the picture. He did not play well at all against a great defense, but Then again, um, the Clemson quarterback also had to play against a great defense.
hmm And then, do you think Garrett Nussmeier is deserving of being this favorite? We saw, let's go back to the stats. Only one touchdown yesterday, but he was
Yeah,
decently efficient, 230 yards. You know, that one touchdown got
yeah,
called.
he got robbed of that one. That yeah.
So do you think that he's deserving of this number one spot?
Who's right behind him?
Lenore Sellers, so that's the quarterback we're watching right now.
Yeah.
He's not looking great. He had a nice rushing touchdown there in the first quarter, but he's been inaccurate on a few throws. I don't think he's too inefficient right now, but he has not thrown a touchdown yet in this game, and we are midway through the third quarter.
Yeah, I think Nussmeier deserves to be in favorite.
hmm
I mean, we saw Jeremiah Smith. I feel like he will jump back up. Not trying to be biased, but
hmm
I don't think he'll get Heisman, but he can jump back up a little bit. That he just didn't get the ball past too much. He dropped two easy passes, and Ohio State didn't go with the deep ball much. Zero touchdowns, 69 yards, four receptions.
hmm And then a guy that I'd like to point out that we should all keep an eye on is John Mateer for Oklahoma. He has a big game against Michigan next week. I think if Oklahoma pulls out that win, we could see Mateer kind of skyrocket into this number one or number two spot. He broke the record. I believe it was over Baker Mayfield. There could have been, don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure it was over Baker Mayfield. He threw over 400 yards yesterday, which is the most ever by an Oklahoma quarterback in their Oklahoma debut. So, what do you think about the transfer, John Mateer? Do you think he has a chance? You know, he's kind of a dual threat. Like he can do it on the ground, he can do it in the air. You know, Oklahoma has a really, really rough schedule, but at the same time, he's going to have a lot of shots this year to prove that he's worth the Heisman Trophy. Do you think that he has a shot, or is he not really ready for the SEC?
I don't think he's really ready for the SEC. I could see him getting top five, but he won't win the Heisman.
Okay, and then do you see any guys? Take a look at the list. Who do you think is your sleeper that we should keep an eye on for this Heisman Trophy? So we
Uh,
see Arizona State's Sam Levitt, Oregon's Dante Moore, Penn State's Drew Aller, Florida's DJ Lagway, Notre
my
Dame's Jeremiah Love.
my two sleepers are Drew Aller.
Okay.
Drew Aller has experience. He knows what the Big Ten looks like. I mean, he kind of has an easier schedule than probably an SEC school, just because the Big Ten's easier to get through. So I feel like he can put up some big numbers. And then DJ Lagway, if he can prove himself in big games, like against Texas, um, Ole Miss would probably also be a bigger game for the Gators. And then I'm not for sure who else they play in the top, but
They got now Florida State could be a ranked game that they see. They're obviously going to see Georgia.
yeah,
They're going to see Tennessee.
yeah.
Um, you were asleep for the Utah game, but Devon Dampier for Utah, I brought him up in episode one a little bit. He shot up a little bit. Utah's offense looked great against UCLA. Their offense is finally back. And yeah, he looked really comfortable, and really that whole offense in general just looked really, really good. Here's Joey Aguilar when in that big Tennessee blowout. Um, so yeah, keep an eye on those guys. I'm gonna stop the screen share here, and we have a game here in just a couple of hours, Notre Dame and Miami. Tell me, we briefly went over this in episode one, but I know you've done a little bit more research now and you're pretty confident in your pick, so just go over it one more time. We just posted a YouTube short. What is your pick for this Notre Dame and Miami game?
All right. My guaranteed lock for the Notre Dame and Miami game will be Notre Dame by 2.5. Carson Beck is looking at new wide receiver core, obviously new team. He doesn't have experience with them. He's going up one of the best defenses in the country. And um, I just feel like Jeremiah Love will take over for Notre Dame offense. Notre Dame will be able to perform, get some crucial touchdowns, and have some long drives and wear out the Miami defense. And I just feel Notre Dame will dominate most of the game.
Right. Yeah, I agree with you there. I think this Notre Dame team is hungry after losing in the college football final, and they really want a natty. They want to win the natty this year. Down in Miami, not a super hard place to play. Notre Dame's got a lot of returners compared to Miami, who has a ton of transfers. Notre Dame has got a good receiver coming in from Virginia that I really believe in. I think CJ Carr's got a lot of positive buzz out of camp recently. So yeah, I agree with you on that Notre Dame -2.5. I believe I locked that up in episode one. But yeah, this could definitely be a two possession game. It might take Carson Beck a while to kind of settle into this offense. I don't think that Miami will be a bad team at all this year, but just with all their guys offensively leaving to the NFL, I think week one, Notre Dame could potentially dominate this game. And have you looked into, or before we get into tomorrow's game, what have you seen so far out of this South Carolina and Virginia Tech game? Right now it's 10-8 and Virginia Tech has the ball. It's like mid third quarter. Who do you think is going to end up pulling out this game?
I think South Carolina will pull out the win. I feel like it's going to be a one possession game towards the end, but I do think that we'll come up with the win at the end. They both look sloppy in the first half. There were a couple turnovers and then just flags. Virginia Tech got a safety, and then what? Did they have a 60-yard?
It was like
Oh,
a 54 yarder, but it looked good from 60 plus, maybe 65 plus there for Virginia Tech.
but yeah, I feel like Virginia Tech will lose, but it'll be a one possession game.
Yeah. I mean, we see both teams making a lot of mistakes on offense. I think both of them just, like you said, look really, really sloppy out of the gate, kind of shooting themselves in the foot. Um, but yeah, Kyron Jones missed a lot of throws, so Virginia Tech could be up big in this game. We'll end up seeing what happens. I saw Dylan Stewart had a little bit of a shoulder injury right before the half there. Their star linebacker slash edge rusher, true sophomore. He has a lot of hype to be a huge pick in the 27 draft, but he got off the field fine. I'm not sure if he's playing, but if he's not playing, or even if that's just causing him any, pain, or if that's going to slow him down at all, we could see Virginia Tech's offense kind of ramp up without that Dylan Stewart on the other end for South Carolina, and maybe Virginia Tech can pull off this upset, especially, if they just missed a few opportunities offensively just by a few inches there for Virginia Tech. So, I mean, this could easily just flip really quickly. Um, and then have you looked into tomorrow's game at all? TCU at UNC.
I have not looked into the game
Um,
for tomorrow.
I believe it's a home game for UNC, but I will double check.
Yes, I know UNC is home against the Horned Frogs.
You're sure it's not neutral?
Oh, um, it might be.
I'm looking it up. Because a lot of these week one games they do neutral, kind of
Neutral.
like the one we're watching right
Yeah.
now. Tomorrow it is in Chapel Hill. Okay, which makes me like my pick even more. It's not a pick on UNC though. Um, but my pick for tomorrow is going to be the under 55 and a half. Or you could also take the under 27 and a half first half. But I think I'm just going to lock up the under 55 and a half for the full game. So we have the new head coach for UNC, Bill Belichick, obviously. He's very defensive minded. We see UNC lose Amari and Hampton to the first round of the 2025 draft. They didn't lose any defenders to that draft. We see TCU lose two of their receivers in the top three rounds of that draft. They also don't lose any defenders. Um, and then for this season, the Tar Heel blog, they listed five players likely to be drafted in this upcoming draft. Four out of those five were defensive players. They really raved about two of their corners to be drafted in rounds three or four. That's Thaddeus Dixon and Marcus Allen. Dixon is a Washington transfer, and PFF showed some insane stats on him. Like he hardly ever gets targeted, hardly ever allows catches. He has a really great PFF grade. And this kind of schemes perfectly against TCU's pass-heavy team. TCU doesn't have good running backs. They have Hoover as their quarterback. They like to throw the ball a lot, and I think North Carolina can match that well defensively. Um, and then for TCU, they have a safety projected late second round. So they also have a good secondary there. That's kind of their best player this season, draft-wise, I'd say, is that safety Bud Clark. Um, Hoover's a great player too, though. And then Gio Lopez, the quarterback for UNC, he's just a redshirt sophomore. He's only ever played against a Power Four team once. So I think that we could see him kind of struggle early in this game, kind of take a while to settle in. I mean, I think he's a good quarterback, but at the same time, new system, you're still young, you haven't had a lot of experience against Power Four teams. I just think that this game is probably going to go under. Both teams have weak and inexperienced wide receiver and running back rooms. Um, I think quarterback play is solid but not elite. So 55 and a half seems kind of like too much for me. A 31 to 24 game would be hitting the under, which I think is definitely in play. Maybe 28 to 27, that would also hit the under. What do you think about that pick, Clayton? Under 55 and a half for TCU and UNC.
Yeah, I definitely like the pick. I mean, with inexperience for both teams, I mean, as we saw yesterday, with inexperience for some teams, the Ohio State Texas was at 49 and a half over under, and was only 21 points scored.
Hmm.
So both of them with inexperience, I feel like
Well, TCU's isn't inexperienced, it's just UNC.
I know, but still with the inexperience of any of the players, you like to see the under hit.
Right.
55 is way too high in college.
Yeah, I think 55 is a good number. Like I said, that kind of like that 31 to 24 range would hit. Um, 17 to 35 would hit, kind of things in that
Yeah.
range.
Are
Um,
we on upset? Are we on upset watch last right now?
um,
Virginia Tech. I see that
uh,
they're driving the ball.
I'm not sure what that flag is on. Yeah, have you seen if Dylan Stewart's playing for South Carolina? Have you seen number six if he's in there?
I have not. I'm just on ESPN looking at the right
I'm
now.
going to get a quick Dylan Stewart update. Yeah, because Dylan Stewart's one of South Carolina's just best players outside of Lenore Sellers. Yeah, he left the game. So yeah, their best defensive player, possibly their best player overall, has left the game. Um, oh, here we go. Dylan Stewart looks to be okay. Sack on first down. Oh yeah, I see him in the game, number six. All right. False alarm. Dylan Stewart is okay. So looks like he's out there playing well. I think South Carolina will most likely hang on, but there he is right there. Big hit.
Yeah,
Tackle
they
for
just
loss, number six.
yeah.
Yeah, he looks to be okay.
Yeah, because what it was second and 32. Yeah, they'll hang on there.
Yeah, so yeah, this could definitely be a close game. I don't think Kyron Jones is a great passer, so playing from behind, I think if Kyron's going to be missing passes, I don't know if Virginia Tech's going to be able to pull this out, really. Looks like they're going to have to punt. So yeah, South Carolina most likely going to have the win. If there is an upset, we'll go over it in the next episode of the podcast. And we will also go over the Notre Dame Miami game in the next episode and the TCU and UNC game.
Is that gonna be tonight, the podcast?
We could do one tonight, maybe go over some NFL and then go over the Miami game. Maybe go over some hockey, some like early hockey stuff. We'll see how much time we have after I get my homework done.
All right.
All right. Is there anything else you have to add, Clayton?
Um, I would like to add the atmosphere at the Ohio State Texas game was insane, guys. That's the most electric atmosphere I've ever been in. Before that, it was the Gator Ole Miss game last year, but now the Ohio State Texas game jumped it. I mean, just to Texas, just imagine if that was a night game. Texas kind of robbed us of that. It was going to be a Sunday night game, but Texas was scared to come up to the shoe on a night. And so, yeah, they kind of robbed us of
So,
that.
do you think it was louder at Ohio State, Texas, or was it just more electric because higher stakes, like bigger, like college game day was there, like that kind of stuff?
I think it was more, I think it was higher stats. I don't think it was as loud potentially. I think
So
it,
the
I,
swamp was probably louder, but this game
the
was
swamp
more,
was probably louder,
this game just had more of
but
that
yeah,
electric feel
yeah,
because of all
just,
the big names there.
yeah. But for sure, it's the loudest Ohio State game I've ever been to. Because, but I mean, I guess I was also by this in the student section, so you know.
Right. Okay. So Clayton had a blast at the Ohio State game. And how many more Ohio State games do you think you'll be attending this year?
My goal is at least um one. I want to go to the Penn State game, and that will be a night game. And then hopefully, if we make the Big Ten championship, I will go down to that in Indianapolis. As long as they do decent, as long as they beat the team up north this year and beat Penn State, they might have one loss this year. It probably will be to the team up north, but
Oh, you're saying you have no confidence.
yeah, I don't think we can beat the team up north this year.
So you, as an Ohio State fan, are saying on YouTube on a published video that you don't think that you're going to beat Michigan.
Yes, sir. We should clip this.
All right, so we're gonna clip this and show that you are not a true Ohio State fan. You have no confidence.
I want them to, but I don't know.
You're expecting disappointment.
Michigan will find a way to, pull one of their scandals out again this year.
So you think Michigan will cheat again?
Yep.
All right. Well, you heard it here. Ohio State fan blaming cheating in the 2025 season, already predicting a loss against Michigan, even after a win against Texas. So we have less than a minute left here on the Zoom. We are going to let you guys go and hopefully get back to you with another episode tonight. Maybe kind of spam a lot of episodes this week and try to get as much content out there for you guys as possible. We will see you guys next time. Peace.
See you guys.